I never thought my parents would tell me they didn't need me. "One child is enough," my father said. My younger sister, Sandy, was smart, and they wanted to focus on her. They told me I had to pay $1,000 a month if I wanted to stay. I was only 10. It was impossible. They gave me a little money and pushed me out the door. I stood outside, crying and knocking, but they never opened it. I was alone. I had nowhere to go, but I remembered my uncle. Maybe he would take me in. I found Uncle's small apartment and knocked. When he opened the door, he looked surprised. I told him everything, and he frowned. "You don't deserve this," he said, his voice sad but strong. Then he took a deep breath. "Emily, I may not be rich, but if you don't mind, I'd like to be your parent." My eyes filled with tears. He wasn't strong like my father, but he was kind. I ran into his arms, feeling safe for the first time in a long time. Living with Uncle was simple but full of love. He often got sick, and we had little money, but he never made me feel unwanted. He praised me when I did well and encouraged me when I struggled. I worked hard, not to impress anyone, but because I wanted to make him proud. Slowly, I stopped thinking about my parents. They had forgotten me, and I tried to forget them. But sometimes I still wondered, did they ever think about me? Years passed, and I built my own life. I had a good job, a husband, and a family. Uncle was healthier and lived with us. Then one day the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I froze. It was my parents. "Emily, we missed you," my father said, forcing a smile. My mother looked around, unimpressed by my small home. "Let's forget the past and be a family again," she added. I didn't move. I laughed, but it wasn't happy. "What do you really want?" I asked. Their smiles disappeared. "Sandy left us," my father admitted. She had become a lawyer, just like they wanted, but one day she ran away. She left a note saying, "I won't take care of you." They had put all their hopes in her, but now she was gone. "And?" I asked. My father sighed. "Our company shut down. We have no money." I felt no sympathy. "You never cared about me before," I said. My father's face darkened. "You're just bitter," he snapped. But I wasn't bitter. I was free. They had spent all their money on Sandy, expecting her to take care of them. But she had escaped, and now they were alone. "We need you," my mother pleaded. I shook my head. "You threw me away," I reminded her. My father's anger grew. "You should be grateful we raised you," he shouted. Uncle, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. "You didn't raise her. You abandoned her," he said. My parents looked at him, but they didn't argue. Deep down, they knew he was right. Uncle wasn't scared of them anymore. "She has a family now," he said firmly. My mother scoffed. "We're her family." Uncle's eyes were sharp. "No, you're not. You lost that right when you threw her out." My father gritted his teeth. "She survived, didn't she?" His words made me sick. Surviving wasn't the same as living. I had struggled, but thanks to Uncle, I had built a happy life. I wasn't about to let them ruin it. I looked at them, seeing them as they truly were, selfish and desperate. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for them. But then I remembered the nights I cried alone, the hunger, the loneliness. "I have a family now," I said, "and you're not part of it." My mother gasped. My father looked stunned. "Goodbye," I whispered. Uncle placed a hand on my shoulder. The door shut behind them. I felt no regret. After that, I felt lighter. Uncle, now stronger than ever, started taking classes and enjoying life. "It's never too late to be happy," he told me. He had spent years being treated badly by my father, but now he was free too. Seeing him laugh with my children filled me with joy. Love isn't about blood. It's about who stands by you. I had chosen the right family. For the first time, I felt truly at peace. Sandy and I had secretly kept in touch. She had suffered too, crushed under our parents' high expectations. The moment she became independent, she ran. They never saw me as a person, just a way to get money, she admitted. She had followed their dream, not hers. Now, she was trying to find out who she really was. I just want to be happy, she told me. I understood her pain. Sandy started over in a new country, away from our parents' control. You should try becoming a lawyer here, I suggested. She laughed. I never wanted to be a lawyer. That hit me hard. She had spent her whole life trying to please them. Then do what you want, I said. She smiled. For the first time, I think I will. She had escaped, just like I had. But now, we weren't alone. We had each other. Our parents had lost everything. They had spent all their money, abandoned one daughter, and controlled the other until she ran. Now, they had no one. I heard they lived in a small, cheap apartment, constantly arguing. It didn't make me happy, but I felt nothing for them anymore. They made their choice, Sandy said. She was right. They had chosen their path, and I had chosen mine. Uncle, once weak and overlooked, had become stronger and happier. We saved each other, he told me one day. He had once been treated like a burden, but now he was surrounded by love. You gave me a family, Emily, he said. But the truth was, he had given me one first. He had been the only one to love me when I had nothing. That was real family. As I watched my children play in the garden, Uncle sat nearby, laughing at their little games. Sandy sat beside me, sipping her tea. The sun was warm, and the air was filled with laughter. Real laughter. Not the fake kind I had heard in my childhood home. I had won, not in the way my parents wanted, but in the way that truly mattered. I had love. I had happiness. I had a real family. My past no longer controlled me. I turned to Uncle, smiled, and whispered, "Thank you, Dad." His eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Emily," he said. Sandy had grown stronger, too. She had spent years trapped under our parents' control, but now she was finally free. "What do you want to do next?" I asked. She smiled. "I don't know yet, but for the first time, I'm excited to figure it out." We had both escaped, each in our own way. "You'll find your own path," I told her, "and I'll always be here for you." She nodded, her eyes full of hope. We had lived through the same pain, but now we were rebuilding our lives, without the people who once held us back. My parents had made their choice long ago. They had picked Sandy over me, treated us both like tools, and now they were left with nothing. But I didn't care anymore. Their fate was no longer my concern. I had my own life, my own happiness, and the family I had built. Uncle was thriving, Sandy was free, and I had everything I ever needed. As I held my husband's hand and watched my children run around, I smiled. My past didn't define me anymore. My story was mine to write, and I had chosen happiness.